Good morning. Today is, sorry, we're still new to the gimbal thing here. There we go, sort of. It is Saturday the 7th, I think, and we are in the local area. Basically, what happened is we have Storm Philippe going by, and the weather's going to suck up in Vermont, or it's going to suck down here. I decided to let it suck on a more local basis and kind of scout this area out for a while. It is kind of a sad thing because today is the first day of turkey season, but with the weather being all shitty and the like, I opted to do this instead. I might actually be doing better with this one. Yeah, we'll do this. And okay, sorry. This is taking some practice and all that. Because it's a little too free moving. But I'll do that. It'd be nice if it could lock, but it doesn't. Anyway, the circumstances are that we are up here in the local area and we're going to be looking for whatever sign is here. I'll task myself with whatever is going on in Bigfooting news or whatever else is on my mind, and that's pretty much the agenda. So let's get going, see what we find, get that icon out of the way so I can stop the recording when I want to, and let's hit it. And let me end there. Okay. We are, after some jostling with our camera, we are using the one we have with us, which is the big gimbal with the police body cam, so, which is actually the most apparently stable one, sorry, and the like, so we will be using this for our filming today. So topics to cover. God forbid my network members find time. I mean, I know we have lives and all, but we need to do some field time sometime too. It would be nice because I haven't seen them in some time. The other gentleman who I was potentially going to go camping with today, I think had something else come up. I think he had a funeral or something, and he also had to admit that like the weather today sucks. Since I was farting with the camera setup, the rain has begun, so the saving grace of being under the trees is it kind of dampens that a little bit, so it's not a complete waste, but it's not an ideal day to be out here, honestly. It's kind of like made the trip, so we're going to make the best of what we're doing here. We're out in this stuff in the local area where I heard the pulsation phenomenon. I'm not going to call it anything Bigfoot related because I just don't have that proof. And I don't have any evidence to back that up. I was able to take measurements of the audio. And if science is consistent and accurate and correct, then basically it was a matter that you had infrasonic sound and some other stuff going in a wave at about 300 meters per second from a distance of probably about 900 meters or so away. From what? Well, there's your mystery. You do have legitimate phenomenon in the woods that do challenge one's ability to explain them, and that was over that way. And again, I have to kind of adjust myself to remember that I don't have a gimbal that, I mean, I can move it around that way, but then it's fairly easy to press buttons inadvertently and kind of have it going in directions and lose control. So right now I have again, what do you call this thing? A Zhiyun Crane M2 is the gimbal, and once you get it in the position you want, you put it in go mode. It's the most stable thing that you're going to have out of the settings on this. And now that as I get better with this and the police cam, the advantages are both units tend to have upward of like 6 hours of battery life. The police cam, I don't think it's fully 4K, but I mean, eventually I got one that is, because police cams are something that Bigfooters ought to actually consider if you're going to do a lot of outdoor vlogging kind of stuff, because they're battery life. So you're giving up a couple of things. If you want zoom capacity, you might have to shop around for one that does that. But for just like vlogging stuff like this, 8 hours of battery life, you can record what you're doing. I'm going to make a comment about, I probably can't do it with this because I'm not going to fart with the settings, but you have a vast array of mushrooms if you're a nerd in that direction because of the rain that we've had. It's been a very wet-assed fall, frankly, so far. And that combined with the time of year, you're kind of in the peak of mushroom season anyway, so there's a rich variety of that from just like a naturalist point of view. But getting back to Bigfoot, not everything out here that I've encountered, and I think I've covered this in the past, two different bits of phenomenon in the forest that are not probably anything to do with large, hairy, forest-dwelling folk. More so just, what is that and how does that work? In Vermont, I encountered the electrical field, and this is a very real phenomenon because it was able to do bad things to my phone twice. That's how I kind of came to discover this, is that the phone went into a factory default thing twice, 2 different times. And my first Removu K1 gimbal camera died as a result of contact with that, and it was off. It wasn't even on. Didn't matter. My drone would not behave and has since taken on other ailments due to an unexpected swim in one of Vermont's larger ponds, which is a different story, but it was never quite right after that for different reasons. Basically, electronics and water don't really get on well. Other than that, I guess we're doing a little story time, but it was measurable, and I did have measures, and I do have that on a video going back a few years, but I have that on video. And last year I was able to get 2 videos with a pulsing sound thing. Well, actually, that was last year, right after Christmas. And that one's even weirder because I've been pursuing this kind of phenomenon since 2003, and in the time I've been out in the woods, that was a first. I really have no explanation as to what the hell that was. It's like one of the, every now and then you'll hit something that completely stumps you, and that was my example in recent times. And as far as things going on in bigfooting and outdoorsy stuff, again, it's the first day of turkey season in Vermont. And if my luck is true and I had gone up there, I would have seen exactly nothing, because last week was the first week of grouse season. And although I was out kind of passively hunting, if there is such a thing, I found literally nothing in the way of grouse. And I was reading an article on speculation on there might be fewer grouse this year because of hatchlings being washed away in flooding, which there's been no shortage of rain up there either. I hope that's not the case. And that's just for an environmental reason, not just like self-interested hunting reasons, but that sucks. I guess we're going to find out how well our little unit here does in the rain, because it was originally just kind of misting out, kind of just moist air, but this, now we have like an active drizzle going on, and I'll try to get as much content made as I can with that being the prevailing forecast and all. But you know how these things, I kind of do these things organically or free form, and whatever happens while I'm out here, me yammering, talking about what's on my mind. I mean, that's kind of what I do. You either like it or you don't. If you want to see me do other things, this is the one time you'll ever hear me do like a YouTuber style plug, where you want to hear me do other things, or other things, you need to leave things in the comments for suggestions on things like that, and then I do other things while I'm out here. But during the filming portion of things, this thing is big and bulky enough, it needs to occupy my attention. I can't really, last week was kind of a pain in the butt when I was walking around with that and a recurve bow at the same time. But I mean, it can be done, but it's clumsy, and The one time I'm switching between two gear modes is going to be when the damn grouse flies up and I have to figure out where the hell I'm going to be occupied with the camera and all that, not dropping moving parts. At the same time, trying to figure out where into the brush the bird went. And both are like full-time occupations of my attention, so it is kind of a challenging thing. So today I just figured we're going to do some filming because, number one, I don't have a hunting license in Connecticut due to the pain in the ass they make it to get one even for bow hunting. And number two, I tend to, even though I have turkey tags for Vermont, I tend to favor grouse over turkey just for the non-BS of it, because in Vermont, the way that works as an out-of-state hunter, you cannot leave the state with any claimed bird before calling it in or getting online and reporting it with your tag and all that. Otherwise, even though you have a full license and all that, you are considered a poacher otherwise. You have to play by the rules, and the rules over there. Whereas with grouse, I think the difference is basically designated in large versus small game, and turkey, for whatever reason, are considered large game, where a grouse is barely the size of a smaller chicken or a Cornish game hen, and that puts them pretty solidly in the small game category. I'm honestly trying to think of anything going on in Bigfooting. If anyone has a status on Jeff Meldrum's medical condition, I'd like to know that, because I keep seeing things, remember him and all that, but no one said if he's getting better or what his actual circumstances are. If anyone had knowledge of that, I wouldn't mind an update. I guess I could put some feelers out for that. So you got like a tree break right there, which is interesting from the standpoint it's probably 9 feet up. It could have been done by wind or anything else, don't get me wrong, but because there's one right there, but that broke over and that doesn't look like anything other than it snapped for whatever reason. But that's the thing, people read. I'm going to break a rule a little bit, and I'm going to kind of single somebody out as a person who I find amusing. And again, I don't know if he's still with the BFRO, but Chris Noel cracks me up. He wrote a book, and if I remember right, it's well over 100 pages long, of all the different kinds of stick structures, and he makes no effort of any kind to define what they mean or anything like that. He went out 1 month, 2 months, or whatever the hell time it took him to go through all this and draw pictures of various things that are deadfall in the woods and try to attribute them to Bigfoot with no explanation whatsoever. You're just supposed to take his word for it, the same way that he has a porcupine and that's a baby Bigfoot. And he's going to march on Washington and get federal protection for Bigfoot with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers, even though that's a pipe dream too. But, you know, so I am not accusing anyone of anything. I will just make the observation that Chris lives in a state where smoking various substances is perfectly free and legal for the most part. And it does certainly seem like he is. We saw that the last time we were here. I took a picture of that if you want to see that real quick. He seems to be getting his fair share of consumption in on some of the interesting and boneheaded claims that he makes. I'm not going to even sugarcoat that. And, you know, there are people out there that get pissy about being called out for silly things they do. And so in the case of a podcaster, the tall ones, every now and then I make a reference to them and their handiwork and their ongoing feud with a Mark Zasky, who is currently claiming that he's part Bigfoot. How the hell you go about figuring that out or coming to that conclusion or proving it, I'll let you draw your own conclusions. But that's his latest claim to fame, and the tall ones, I won't use a guy's name because I don't know if he wants to be publicly named, so I'll respect his privacy. But when you make a spectacle of yourself, you get pulled out and your name is used. Mr. Zasky has attempted to take action against, I think, the tall ones and like get copyright strikes again. I could be wrong, so before I make this as a formal accusation or anything, I could be wrong, but I think I remember that. So that is what we call conjecture on my part. But pretty sure I remember Thinker Thunker doing this to Steve Kulls a while back and attempting to copyright strike and otherwise threaten action because he's being called a person who is kind of, I don't know, making shit up. Did I say that? But this is why, folks, we in the community cannot have nice things and cannot be taken serious by the mainstream, mainly because people like this are running around for clickbait and all this other stuff, preying upon the gullible among us and making silly claims that are a bunch of BS. I've been doing this for about 20 years now, and I have things to do where I'm not going to lower myself to doing that shit. I mean, I have a YouTube channel. I'm making content for it now. I don't mean to virtue signal, and if I am, that's my bad, but I don't intend to go the way of clickbaiting and things of that nature, because that just leads down a rabbit hole from which it's damn hard to pull yourself back out of. Thinker Thunker used to be respected, and then he did some interestingly weird things, and he got called out by people like Kulls, and calling people out is basically what Kulls does. And he typically has a solid case behind him, because his claim to fame is it gets like steadily more crappy and rainy out. It was supposed to just be a drizzle. They lied. I may take a segment break and wait out the weather, actually. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So we'll be back in a bit after the rain decides to get the hell over itself. I got to kind of... Thank you. Son of a... Nothing's easy with you, is it? Thank you. We will have... Son of a bitch. Ah! You worked before, why can't you work now? Got all that on camera too. Oh, fuck you, you piece of shit. Okay, the camera's not really doing what it's supposed to, and I probably due to getting wet and all that, so this is going to be the outro. My point before, you got people messing it up because they're saying nonsense. It's a recurring theme, unfortunately. It's probably something to be with us for any given period of time. I don't really feel like wrestling with the camera and the gimbal in the pouring rain, because I think it's got a personality due to the wetness factor. The rain is not doing what they said, of course, because that's the nature of New England. So we're going to call it here. It's probably a short one, but the weather sucks, and it is what it is. Enjoy the scenery while it's here. If the goddamn camera would freaking do what I tell it to, God forbid. But it's not going to, because it's being an asshole. You can tell my temper is kind of flaring a little bit. because the camera's not behaving itself and doing what the fuck it should. So before the camera goes into gimbal arrest mode again, I'm going to say thanks. Again, if you want me to do... Son of a bitch. I fucking... When this thing doesn't work, I get very pissed off. Like that. Okay, I'm just going to call this before I get aggravated. Like, subscribe, leave comments, leave suggestions. And thanks for listening. And before I get too annoyed with this thing, I'm going to call it here. Turn off.